What is the scariest unsolved mystery you know about? In 2006, 23-year-old Robert Hornbeck, a soldier at Fort Benning, went to Savannah to visit family. He went out bar hopping with a friend. His dad came to pick him up at 3 a.m. His dad called and Robert answered, saying, "Dad, I'm on the stairs," then the call disconnected. He was missing for the next 10 days. In the nearby DeSoto Hilton Hotel, guests started complaining about a terrible smell whenever the air conditioning came on. A worker went down to check the problem and found Hornbeck's body inside the air conditioning unit. He wasn't staying at the hotel. Somehow he got inside the hotel through an employee entrance door that was supposedly locked, but there was no sign of forced entry. He would have crossed a dark, empty ballroom and gone through a maintenance door. He climbed up 13 steps so steep they were like a ladder. From there, he went down a dark hallway next to the AC unit. He'd have seen 3 panels that opened into the unit, a large one and 2 smaller ones. The police actually checked inside the large one, figuring no one could have gone in the smaller ones. When they later checked again, they found Hornbeck had climbed through the middle door, which was only 14 inches wide. Cold air would have immediately blasted him when he opened it. He crawled down through the duct and somehow got past rotating fan blade to crawl even further inside the unit. He was eventually hit by another fan blade and died inside the unit. The police found no signs of foul play and it was ruled an accident. Someone I knew in high school was at a party. Reports showed that people saw him leaving the house around 1:30 a.m. and was walking home. It was about a 10-minute walk. However, he was never heard from again. A lot of people were questioned. The party had 12 or 13 people attending the party and he was the one of 3 people who left at the same time. Everyone was 16 to 20. They say he only had 2 or 3 drinks. He didn't like to get drunk and never had more than that. No other substances were believed to be at the party. 3 days later, his body appears in a pond in a different neighborhood in the opposite direction of his home. From where the party was and where his body showed up, he had to cross a main street and walk about half a mile, unless he walked through backyards. The morning his body was found, there was a report that 2 people had stood outside the pond the morning before and the morning of his body floating to the top of the pond. There was some time spent trying to figure out who those 2 people were, but nothing came of it. It was ruled an accidental death. One of the people at the party was a close friend's sister. She's talked about it. She said she truly doesn't know what happened. She just knows that he wasn't remotely drunk, barely tipsy. There's no reason for him to walk in that direction and she has no idea who might have been at the pond in the morning. On June 4, 2010, 7-year-old Kyron Horman was taken to Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon by his stepmother, Terry, who then stayed with him while he attended a science fair. Terry stated that she left the school at around 8:45 a.m. and that she remembered seeing Kyron walking down the hall to his first class. He never showed up in his first class, a math class, and was instead marked as absent that day. His stepmother went and did some errands and came home to post the photos of her son at the science fair. At 3:30 p.m. Terry and her husband, Kane, walked with their daughter, Kiara, to the bus stop to meet Kyron. The bus driver told her he had not boarded the bus. Terry called the school only to be told Kyron had not been seen since early that day and was marked as absent. An exhaustive search has found no trace of him. Years ago, my brother's grammar school called my mom at my grandmother's house. This was before cell phones were so common. My mom was the only one in the family who had one and it was rarely on, and they couldn't reach us at home all morning. The lady who called said one of my brothers didn't show up to his first class. Then she saw he was picked up early. She didn't recognize the person's signature in the book. His backpack was left behind. I'll never forget my mom's reaction. She called the cops as soon as she got all the details from the lady. My poor grandma was in a wheelchair and was stuck upstairs, crying and yelling down for updates. I was beside myself, about to call my dad on my mom's cell phone. Lo and behold, shortly after I turned it on, he's calling the phone to tell my mom he picked up my brother early because he got hurt in gym class. There were also a bunch of voicemails from the school saying he needed to be picked up. God, the relief I felt. I ran upstairs and hugged my grandma and we wept as my mom told the cops it was a false alarm. Just terrible communication all around. He didn't know we weren't home, my mom didn't have her phone on, the people in the school office didn't tell their coworkers what was going on, a mess. Brandon Lawson. He disappeared in the middle of nowhere on a highway near San Angelo, Texas in 2013. He made a 911 call, out of breath and running, clearly being chased. I believe the recording is on YouTube. The call suddenly cuts off and there's been no sign of him since. The 911 call is spooky. You can tell the dude is afraid. Brandon Lawson's 911 call.
911 emergency.
Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. It's like we're just pushing guys over. Right here going towards Javelin on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. You got to take it to the woods. Please hurry.
Okay, now run that by me.
I'm not talking to him. I actually ran into him.
Ah, you ran into him. Okay.
Got the first guy.
Do you need an ambulance?
Yeah. No, I need the cops.
Okay. Is anybody hurt? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Brandon's brother has given some recent interviews where he says that his brother had a problem with meth, and that during the phone calls while he was trying to find him, the brother thought he was in a state of drug-fueled psychosis. I think it's far more likely that Brandon thought he was being chased, but it was really just the meth talking to him. The fact that no trace of his body was found is sobering, but there's wild hogs out in that part of the world. Hogs can digest every part of a human body except for the hair and teeth. And a pack of 16 hogs can destroy a 200-pound body in 8 minutes. They cannot digest shoes and clothing, but once they are done with the body, the shoes and clothing will be ripped to shreds, ready to blow away with any breeze. And being tore up, plus washed through porcine digestive tracts, those bits of garments will rot away even faster than they already were. I don't know the name of the guy, but it's that a guy was recording himself going through pitch black tunnels full of human bones, which are the tunnels in Paris where they buried 6 million people. He was going through the tunnels walking between chambers full of dead bodies, and he seemed relaxed until something spooked him and he started sprinting away. They found his camera, which the recording showed he had dropped it while running away in a panic. No one ever knew what spooked him, and his body was never found. Most parts of those tunnels are blocked, so it's believed he got in illegally through some sort of tunnel or vent. The case of Todd Geib, a guy who was at a party with his friends and left to walk home alone. His friends got some weird phone calls from him after he left, and then he was missing for a few weeks, I think. Then weeks later he was found standing upright in the middle of a lake, like with the water up to his shoulders. From what I remember, the cause of death wasn't drowning, so he must have been placed there. Honestly, so freaking creepy. There was a terrorist/organization in the mid-1980s in Luxembourg known as De Baumelier who set explosives on several public buildings, notably the police HQ and the Palace of Justice, as well as a European Council meeting, as well as the country's electrical infrastructure. To date, no one knows who was behind it or exactly what they wanted, or why they stopped. I don't know if it's the scariest, but I was always creeped out by the Westfield Watcher. New family moves into a new house. They start receiving letters from the Watcher saying their family has been watching the house for generations. The letters start getting worse and worse with threats to the children. It's a disturbingly fascinating story, and I've been following since it started. Many people believe the father was sending the letters himself because the mortgage payment was too high and was trying to finesse his way out of the contract. But who really knows for sure? For me, it's the Tamam Shud case. In 1943, an unidentified man is found deceased on a beach in Australia and with a scrap of paper with the phrase Tamam Shud, meaning it's over, in his pocket. The scrap was linked to a book called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which had a secret, and since indecipherable, message in the back of the book. They have recently exhumed the body and are in the process of analyzing and comparing the DNA to any known relatives, so this may soon be solved. It's not a public mystery as it involves myself. When I was 14, I went to a training camp for football, or soccer, with my whole team. One evening after dinner we were in our rooms, mine I spent with 4 friends. Apparently mid-conversation I got up from my bed and walked out of the room without saying a word. Now there should be stated that I'm a diabetic, type 1, and if my sugar gets too low I sometimes do weird stuff. So I walk outside and down the hallway to a window and just stand there. My friend finds me, asks if I'm okay, to which I didn't answer. According to him I was kind of growling and gripping a pole next to the window as if I was choking someone. Now he says that he would get the others and when they return I'm gone. On the other side of the building. One finds me again, but as he gets the others I disappear again and somehow got back into our room. They return there and as they walk through the door I ask them where they have been. Now I should say I don't remember anything of that. They told me and said they were scared shitless. I'm still wondering what happened back there and would really like to know what caused me to do this stuff. As the reason was not my diabetes. The Lake Bodom murders in 1960. 3 teens were brutally beaten and stabbed to death, and the one survivor was badly beaten and also stabbed. The survivor was arrested in 2004, but was found not guilty. Likely will never be solved due to the time passed. You missed out the creepiest part. The horrifying looking sketch of a dude who doesn't look human, than the picture at the funeral with that guy clearly sitting there. Cindy James was a 44-year-old nurse who began to experience troubling moments of harassment that began with creepy calls to scary notes that continually escalated over 7 years to violent attacks. However, authorities didn't believe her despite numerous troubling accounts that included James being found strangled with nylon, drugged and stripped on the side of the road, and other terrible acts of abuse that even included a house fire while guests were staying over. Cindy James ultimately disappeared, and her body was found dead weeks later near an abandoned house, hog-tied with nylon around her neck. Her death was ultimately determined to be from an overdose of morphine, which caused police to frustratingly rule it as a suicide, even though she had been tied up and had previous reports of being drugged. I took a perspective class in college and it turned out to be about microbes in society. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but I stayed out of curiosity. I learned a lot about different microbes and it was great, until we heard about a virus from the CDC called the Chimera. It's basically 2 of the worst viruses combined. Ebola and another virus were combined to create something that wouldn't kill people faster than it could spread, so it could reach more people, and the effects were ghastly if it did. Supposedly, there were only 2 samples. One that lives at the CDC, and another that was lost in a lab in Russia that doesn't exist anymore. They don't know what happened to the other sample, so the CDC keeps theirs at the ready in case they need to combat it if it became a means of biological warfare or something. This was the scariest thing I took away from that class. 2008 Arushi Talwar murder case, not scary per se but interesting in a whodunit sense. In a nutshell, 13-year-old girl found murdered in her bedroom by her mother in the morning. First, the blame came onto the male staff, who was found to be missing for days post the murder. He was then found murdered on the terrace 2 days later. Evidence and witnesses got tampered with time and again. 1. First, some friends of the male staff members admitted to committing the 2 murders under influence. They later testified that they were coerced. 2. One golf club of the father's was found missing. Later turned up cleaned and due to evidence tampering was made inadmissible in court. 3. The mother stated that when she woke up and found Arushi, the house was locked from the outside. Meaning somebody had left the house and locked them in at some point. A female cook at the scene in the beginning, however, said this was not true and that the house was open when she reached. 4. One theory came about that there was a wet patch on Arushi's bed. The theory was that the parents had found the male staff member and Arushi in a compromising position and killed both in anger. This theory was debunked as well. The transcript of all the court proceedings are still in the public domain. The parents continued years and years of court rounds to find the murderer. They also went to jail for a few years. No final verdict was finally met with. Tristan Brubach, 13. This is some truly awful stuff. Tristan was walking home through a local park and was brutally murdered. What's weird about this is that not too long before his murder he was happy and healthy and petting an elderly lady's dog. He then walked down a dark tunnel and was attacked. When a young girl found his body, it was laying over a grate that led to the sewer, and the girl described hands reaching up from the grate and grabbing his body. Tristan was stabbed and had evidence of chunks of his flesh being eaten. When the police checked the sewer, they found nothing. What's so awful about this is the idea that a random man jumped out of the sewer, attacked and then ate parts of Tristan and got away. When I was like 11, I was over my neighbor's house playing Resident Evil and it got dark. So I had to run down his driveway and loop around from the street to come up my gravel driveway to the back of the house because we didn't use the front door. Across the street is just straight woods, so fear was a little jacked up from the video game. Now the back of my house is sort of a porch-like area that is walled around with a screen door and windows. The house is lit up, and there's a little moonlight. I walk up these old blue painted steps to get to the screen door and it's locked. I'm sitting there thinking like crap, how did my parents lock me out like huh? So to my left there's this side yard that is fenced, and a deck that is connected to the porch. Then I hear my name from said side yard. Doug. To me it sounded like my dad, so I answered Dad. And didn't get any response. So I figure like okay, I'll climb over the fence because the fence door was locked too for some reason. I get to the top and pushed myself, so I roll over the top lifting myself with my arms and I sort of fall onto the grill and make some noise. I keep it from falling over and then look up to the yard and expect to see my father, but there's nothing. For some reason I'm chilling, like, okay that's weird but maybe I'm just hearing things. I try the second screen door from the deck and that's locked too. Then I hear it. Doug. Every hair on my body stood up. I slowly turned around and my eyes immediately went to this huge tree opposite of where I was on the other side of the yard, like that was where the voice came from. Right to the crotch of the tree, it's dark. Like the blackest black, and it seems like there's barely any moonlight now, just the deck light over me. I can't make it out, but there's something in that tree looking at me like condorish. I freak the hell out and slam myself into the screen door, knocking it off its hinges and landing on all fours. I don't even look behind me, I run to the sliding door and it's locked. So I head to the window to the kitchen on the right and rip up the screen, and leap through onto my back. I sprinted to the living room and hid under a coffee table until my mom came downstairs. I don't know what happened that night. Anytime I hear something related to the Jersey Devil or Skinwalkers, that memory comes back to me. This was in South Jersey. I'd like to believe I just imagined it. Mass grave found in Liverpool of thousands of simple wooden coffins stacked tightly in a cube shape. The dead were all adults, no children. The coffins were all removed pretty quickly after discovery and not much more was ever discovered. The leading theory is that the deceased were Irish immigrants, and that the reason there were no children is that they would have been shipped off to Australia. Quite what caused the adults' demise isn't known. Also special mention to the man in the pipe, also from Liverpool. A man in Victorian dress found lying inside a sealed-up pipe with his head resting on a brick, as if he'd just climbed in and fallen asleep. Both stories have been covered by local folklorist Tom Sleman. Here's an event that happened recently near me. It is bugging me because things don't seem to make sense. I've taken the main details off a blog post and shortened it down for you. Noah Donohoe was a 14-year-old Catholic schoolboy from Belfast, Northern Ireland, who left his home on his bike on the 21st June this year to meet friends. He never returned. Hundreds of volunteers joined in the search for Noah when he went missing. Police had said that a boy matching his description was seen falling off his bike in the North Queen Street area. He is later seen in the Northwood area of Belfast City, where according to police he was seen cycling naked. On Saturday, June 26, the body of Noah Donohoe was found in a storm drain in North Belfast. At the time, police did not believe there was any foul play. The narrative being presented is that Noah fell off his bike, suffered a head injury, took off his clothes and cycled to the drain where he drowned. When the police found his body, they immediately ruled out any foul play, despite the fact that they were in no position to say conclusively that was the case at the time. During July, the family were told that police were to carry out a leaflet drop and door-to-door inquiries in the area Noah went missing. After receiving no further information, they contacted the police and were told on 16 July that it had taken place, but that the PSNI, Police Service of Northern Ireland, were unable to share the leaflet with the family. The Irish News asked for a copy of the leaflet, only to be told by PSNI, Police Service of Northern Ireland, spokesperson, that they did not conduct a leaflet drop at this stage. Why did the police lie to Noah's family about conducting a leaflet drop? The family have also never been shown CCTV footage that shows Noah cycling naked in the Northwood area. Nor has any mobile phone footage been found showing a naked boy cycling through a city the size of Belfast. The fact that no CCTV footage has been released sheds a lot of doubt on this story. Later on that month, the post-mortem revealed that he died of drowning, and did not suffer a head injury that led to his death. If he didn't suffer a massive head injury, then why would a 14-year-old strip naked and cycle to a drain pipe to drown? The events leading from his falling from his bike to him ending up in there is a complete mystery. No one's seen him and the police aren't shedding any light on the situation. There are a lot of rumors and speculation as to what happened to Noah. Particular area of North Belfast has been simmering with sectarian tension over the past few months. It happened in an area that is notorious for sectarian and racist attacks. A 15-year-old Catholic who was riding his bike in the area was assaulted in a sectarian attack just the month before. I'm not going to say that there is a police cover-up, but there is more to this story than is being told. The police have bungled the response to this and haven't provided Noah's family the answers they need. The recent murder in Atlanta, Georgia. A 40-year-old bartender got off work and went to walk her dog around 2 a.m. in the most popular park in Midtown. Her body is found stabbed over 50 times, disfigured, and mutilated with the word "fat" carved into her chest. She was found by her wife, who tracked her phone using Find My iPhone when she didn't come home. Her dog was also stabbed to death. Despite this huge park being in the wealthy center of the city, all the surveillance cameras around the park did not work. Her body was only found 250 feet from a main road and probably a 3-minute walk to a hub of bars and restaurants open late. In interviews with the wife, she talks about paying off debts using the GoFundMe donations. That's the only hint of any possible explanation to me. No other evidence was found and no additional surveillance footage has been recovered. This happened in July 2021 and still no information. Some people think official sources are holding out and that the word "slut" was carved, not "fat," and that the body was dismembered. I had dog sat for a childhood friend on the corner from where the victim was murdered just 3 days prior and had taken her dog to the park at the exact spot where the victim was murdered when it was dark. I got creepy vibes and ran back. All around so scary. Not really scary, but I will tell it either way. In my dorm, we used to have a guy, his nickname was Apu. I don't know the origin, but everyone here goes by their nickname in the dorm, so I didn't question it. Before I continue, you should know that in my country it's very common for students to stay in the dorm for 3 or even 4 years since a flat in the city is quite expensive. Anyways, Apu was a regular guy. If you talk to him, nothing weird would stand out. He studied at a known university of the area and would hang out with us plenty of times. In my dorm, everyone is friends with everyone since there are so few people living in the building. When asked what year he was born in, he would always answer 1997. This is where it starts to get weird. We later figured out that his ID said he was born in 1995. After some confusion, one of the dorm students that knows some of the staff members pretty well asked how old Apu was. They confirmed that he was from 1997. So now we are thinking, it's weird that he would lie about his age to us, but how did he lie to the dorm? After all, he needs to sign legal documents and so on. Anyways, one of my friends that went to the same university as Apu would sometimes go on his car since they both apparently had pretty similar schedules. One day she decided to follow him to class. This was because although Apu claimed to study business, some of the friends my friend had also studied business in this year and had apparently never seen him. Classes here have around 100 people, so it's not too hard to remember some faces after a couple of years with the same group. Well, when she was following him, he went towards the parking lot where the car was and headed out of the university campus. We tried to ask many times about all of this, but every time he would laugh and say things like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I didn't have class that day," or "my date faux birth on the ID is fading, so it looks like 1995. All of this was complete BS, and regardless of how hard we tried, we never got an answer. After he left the dorm, another friend of mine decided to visit him. He claimed that he was in a city to the north of where the dorm was, about 3 to 4 hours by train or 30 to 40 minutes on a plane. My friend took a plane to said city hoping to meet him on the airport, since that was the agreement. Well, once he reached the airport, all communications between the two ceased. My friend could not get a hold of him and was left stranded in the airport. After almost 12 hours of trying to contact him, he decided to take a plane back home. The very day after that happened, I saw him inside a bus that was driving through my dorm's road. To this very day, I still don't know who he really is, his age, or even his real name. There are a lot of wild theories, like he is a protected witness in a police operation or a spy or something along the lines. But yeah, weird and creepy stuff. Also, sorry if this is hard to read, I'm crap at making stories make sense. Nevia Buchanan. Monroe, Michigan. Buried alive by her abductor 11 years ago, encased in cement. No one held responsible. A New York TV channel had a false emergency alarm with the words "would you, could you," on a train being shown on screen. The following day, a train malfunctioned in Hoboken, New York, which led to a train accident. The alleged role of Saudi officials in 9/11. It's known that officials with ties to Saudi Arabia helped some of the hijackers get acclimated when they were living in the US, but no ironclad proof of complicity in 9/11 has ever been found. However, the amount of circumstantial evidence would make anyone suspicious. The implication that some of America's allies helped carry out 3,000 murders is haunting. I hope one day the truth comes out. For those who want to know more, there's a summary in my description box of the FBI case into the matter from last year, might be behind a paywall. There's also some recently declassified documents from FBI about it. I remember reading about all of the feet washing up on a shore, I believe it was on the Canadian border. But for years a left or right foot would wash up, it would be on the news briefly and then it would disappear. To my knowledge it's never been resolved. This one happened in my city. The media called him Mr. Cruel. He kidnapped preteen girls and would keep them in his house and assault them. He would wear this modified balaclava, which is just freaking weird and creepy to look at. Thing is, after a few days or just hours he would release them, but he'd always change their clothes, bath them, with one victim even describing it like a mother washing her baby. In one instance he took clothes from the victim's wardrobe during the kidnapping for her to change into before he released her. This stumped the police as he was so meticulous in removing almost all trace of evidence. However, his last suspected crime escalated. Carmine Chan was only 13 when she was abducted, and unlike the other victims she was never released. Instead her body was found a year later with multiple gunshot wounds. It's unknown if Mr. Cruel was actually responsible for her kidnapping and murder, as the murder didn't fit with his pattern of crimes, however the abduction did. It was suspected he was the same person as the Golden State Killer, but he was identified and caught in 2018, and found to have never been to Australia. It's been 30 years since Carmine was murdered. The case is still unsolved and it breaks my heart. The Boy in the Box. In 1957, the body of a young boy was found dead inside of a box on the side of a road in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The boy was estimated to be between the ages of 4 to 6 years old. His body was found with bruises and cuts scattered all over. Residents of a nearby neighborhood were interviewed to see if they had any idea who the boy was, if they knew his parents or any relatives, and or if they had seen any suspicious activity around that area where his body was found. Nothing was reported. Sketches of the boy were made public because the police involved in the investigation were unable to identify who he was. They dressed his body to take photographs to see if anybody would recognize him. They even went as far as creating what they would have thought the boy would look like if he were a girl. They even tried to create an image of what they thought his parents might have looked like. Again, nothing was reported. Till this day, no one knows about this boy's identity and who murdered him. Therefore, this case still remains unsolved. I know I am late to the party, but I don't know how many of you are actually aware of this case from New Delhi, India, known as the Burari deaths. It's a very strange case. A family of 11 people, including people of 3 generations, were found dead. 9 of them were found hanging in a circle from the ceiling, and the oldest woman and 1 other person were found dead in their rooms. All of their eyes were covered with a cloth, some of their ears were closed with a piece of cotton, and some of their hands and legs were tied. The case is still unsolved, as there has been no clue or proofs about someone breaking in the house or any kind of suicide note. There is also a Netflix documentary on the same called The House of Secrets. Edit, their dog who was tied on the roof was the only one alive. This one isn't so much on the scary behalf but more on the creepy behalf, but still is very interesting. On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a nondescript man calling himself Dan Cooper approached the counter of Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland, Oregon. He used cash to buy a one-way ticket on flight number 305, bound for Seattle, Washington. Thus began one of the great unsolved mysteries in FBI history. Cooper was a quiet man who appeared to be in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit with a black tie and white shirt. He ordered a drink, bourbon and soda, while the flight was waiting to take off. A short time after 3 p.m., he handed the stewardess a note indicating that he had a bomb in his briefcase and wanted her to sit with him. The stunned stewardess did as she was told. Opening a cheap attaché case, Cooper showed her a glimpse of a mass of wires and red-colored sticks and demanded that she write down what he told her. Soon, she was walking a new note to the captain of the plane that demanded 4 parachutes and $200,000 in $20 bills. When the flight landed in Seattle, the hijacker exchanged the flight's 36 passengers for the money and parachutes. Cooper kept several crew members, and the plane took off again, ordered to set a course for Mexico City. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, a little after 8 p.m., the hijacker did the incredible. He jumped out of the back of the plane with a parachute and the ransom money. The pilots landed safely, but Cooper had disappeared into the night and his ultimate fate remains a mystery to this day. Article can be found in the description below. I'm unsure if this counts, but this is a story that happened to me, my cousin, and my brother that really freaked us out, but have never been able to fully make sense of it and remains a mystery to us. It was Halloween, 2013. I was trick-or-treating with my little bro and cousin at my grandmother's neighborhood. She lives in a hilly forest area. At the end of the road, there's a T. Go left and you leave the neighborhood, go right and go further in. We went right. It was empty, dark, and no one was answering their doors. All the trick-or-treaters we saw go in and out were gone. After the fifth door that didn't answer, I looked up at the sky. The wind was howling, the trees were blowing, I saw crows, and I had this sense of uneasiness, like something was watching. My bro and cousin probably felt the same thing. Then it happened. Everything stopped, the trees froze, the wind stopped, it was like time froze. We looked back over in the street, and there stood a shadow, a black figure, that flickered in the middle of the street. Instantly after, we heard a scream, we looked over, the neighborhood began to fill again, trick-or-treaters were coming back, but the figure was gone. It all happened so fast. I'd say I imagined it, but my little brother was bawling his eyes out and my cousin was just as frozen as I was. We went back to my grandma's after that, we were done for the night. 8 years later and I still remember it clear as day. As always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, show your support. Leave your thoughts and opinions down below.